Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this, the 13th of hopefully many episodes of Bardadvice, a Dungeons and Dragons advice podcast where I, Charles Chaz Yazik, the DM, the Bard, do my best to give advice surrounding your TTRPG lives. So if everybody's doing all right, it's Friday evening. I took a nap today. And by the way, I don't know at what point in my life this happened, but anything under like 73 degrees is cold now, which is bizarro. In my 20s, it was like 65 all the time. We were like freezing the AC over. But now I find in my 30s, it's like 74, 75 is perfect. Hello, everyone. Hey, Chris and Avram, Nebraska, because thank you for the compliment. Hope everybody's doing well. So, a couple of things at the top of the show before we get started. Just a reminder, send all of your questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice if it helps you remember. Running a little low. Not totally low. Got some stuff that I still want to answer, but send some stuff in. Even if you've sent stuff in before. And also, at the end of this episode, I'm going to do a follow-up from a few episodes ago. And I'd like to hear back from people who have gotten advice in the past, just to send in kind of updates as to what happened. If you followed my advice and it went well or it went poorly, or you ignored my advice and it went well or poorly, send it in, because we'll start talking about that at the end of every episode. Also, just a quick merch plug. You can grab yourself merch at manshorts.com, just a reminder. And also, if you are interested in contributing to what I'm doing with music, you can contribute directly to that on my PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazik. So that is all the pluggy stuff that's going on at the moment. Oh, also, in regard to this with the podcast, if you can, anybody listening on Apple, if you can rate the show, that really helps. I know as far as like the algorithm, I know less about the podcast world with algorithms, but I do know that those ratings are really important, particularly on Apple. So if you're listening to this on Apple and you like it, give me 5 stars. Let's keep this thing cranking. And then also, feel free to rate it elsewhere. Thank you, Nebraska, because for the gift of memberships. That's very kind of you. I'm sure that everyone appreciates that. And the channel certainly does. So thank you very much. Oh, all right. So I don't have anything on deck for like an art corner this week, although I did want to maybe consider switching it up every other episode or something, maybe doing art one week and then news the next, at least like news surrounding the TTRPG world. And out of curiosity, I looked up what was going on in D&D. And they're releasing all this Unearthed Arcana playtest stuff for one, right? So I guess that they released this article recently that discussed the least favorite, or more likely the least played class, which is Druid, which is kind of sad. And I don't think that would have been the case in previous editions. I don't know if it has to do with the build. I don't know what it has to do with. I feel like, unfortunately, Druid and Ranger both suffer from being kind of hybrid classes of which you can accomplish everything that you want with them with other classes. So, like, if you're somebody who wants to do damage and be kind of in the fray, it's like, is there really a benefit to a ranger over a fighter? And this is coming from somebody who likes rangers. In 5e, I don't know if there is. Now, I think that there was some stuff that they added with Tasha's, right? Didn't they enhance a lot of the classes with the Cauldron supplement? So that made them better. But apparently they nerfed the Druid into the ground. Really? That's unfortunate. I see here that one of the news items on that is that I guess that they've adjusted the wild shape so that you can kind of just wild shape into whatever you want, which I can only assume is due to the plot line in the film where the druid shapeshifts into the, or rather wild shapes, whatever you want to call it, into the owl bear. But once the druid's to use one stat block for all shifts. I hope that doesn't fly. Yeah, it seems like they're kind of doing that across the board. That's what they did with the abilities. Although I think that they should have done that already from the beginning. It really should just be like straight up +2 -1 across the board. But that's just like my opinion, man. But you can wild shape into whatever you want, and they do it in these kind of like tiers. So I guess you can wild shape into a land animal, a sea animal, or an animal of the sky. I don't know if that's going to go over well. I don't know if people are going to like that. It's like people don't already like druids. And then you're really simplifying it. Because here's the thing. One of the things that's really cool about being a druid is the interaction with animals. Not just like with your ability to wild shape, but your ability to do stuff like speak with animals and interact with animals in general in the world around you. Like being that, like the animal ambassador for the party. That's a really cool thing. So I think people that like playing druids are already kind of like specialization classes. And making it vague like this, where it's just like, okay, you know, do what you want, it kind of cheapens it. I don't think it's smart. If you're already having people not playing Druid, don't nerf Druid. Those stat blocks are copy posted from Ranger subclass, yeah. Having to carry around 100 beast stat blocks is pretty crazy. That's true, yeah. I can understand that logic and argument. It does simplify things. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But they got to do something with Druids if people aren't playing it. All right. Saw a post earlier that they're doing more changes to the classes. Yeah, I'm sure that they're changing all kinds of stuff. And very likely streamlining it to these kind of things where it's more vague and open. Which, you know, I think you can make the argument that that's a good thing because it's really putting the power back into the player's hands. You know, that's always been one of my complaints with 5e anyway, is that they kind of streamlined and made easy the process that we built up in 3.5. So, like I've discussed ad nauseum in the past, like the Oathbreaker Paladin. But another example would be like fighters. Oh, thank you, Lauren. Love the show. Love the music as well. Can you freestyle a bar or two about non-combat specific rogue in a 3.5 game, maybe? I appreciate the donation, Lauren. I unfortunately do not freestyle. I just don't. So, but I will say I am in the final processes of mixing and mastering my OGL diss track, which will be dropping soon. Peppercorn trapped. Wait a minute. At this point, Mustang has trapped himself in the ancient library after restoring the old Gith skeleton tattoo man to his old self with a spider queen. Like rolled a cobble. Peppercorn is trapped reading an entire library of ancient knowledge. Hell yeah. It's a good place to be trapped. Just another note here on... I'm actually not current on The Last of Us. And I've also been watching... as for media stuff, Schitt's Creek for the first time. I don't know if I'd brought that up before. I have never watched that show, and it is hilarious. Eugene Levy is a genius. Oh, and he also has the show on Apple TV. I think it's called The Reluctant Traveler, and it's just him going around the world like Rick Steves or one of those guys, but it's Eugene Levy. I only watched one of them, the first one, which is like Finland, but it's funny. I'd recommend it. So, let's get into this episode of questions, because we have several. And the first question that we have this evening is from Cameron. And Cameron asks, yesterday I started my first campaign as a PC, but quickly after starting, I've realized that I would love to DM. I am very much a perfectionist when it comes to plot and how the story flows. I don't know if you're going to love DM, and that would there be any advice on how to set up a campaign, or maybe any campaigns that would be easy to improvise into my own flavor? So, yeah, that is the nightmare that is DMing is that most DMs have perfectionist mindsets, but playing the game is herding cats. It's a goat rodeo. Hey, Pirate, how are you? So, hello, Anthony. Expect to get derailed. Yeah, expect... Being a perfectionist is something that can serve you well as a DM, but often doesn't. Only because the only thing that you can really be sure of in D&D is that it's not going to go how you think it's going to go. Like 1 out of 10 times. I don't know where River is. Learned a long time ago that 3/4 of GMing is prep work and 3/4 of GMing is improvising. Yeah, you do have to plan for chaos. That's a good point. It's what I would recommend you do, honestly, if you're DMing for the first time and this was your first game and immediately upon starting you decided that you wanted to DM, I would run a module first. I'm sure that you want to jump into like your own story, but I think that if you were to do a module, it would allow you to learn the mechanical side of DMing without, because if you do something that's homebrew, I don't know if you're going to be able to get all of the mechanical stuff down. It's going to make it overly complicated. Whereas if you were to just run something like Strahd, and then you could put your own spins in it if you want to, then that allows you to focus on the mechanical aspect of the game. And then if you're comfortable, once you've done that, then you can just run a homebrew. Let's see what people in the chat are saying. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, then throw away the plan. Yeah, for sure. Run like 1 to 3 shot, maybe to get a feel for it first. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like a 1 shot would be really good. Because it's, 3-4 hours. There's not a whole lot of, 3-4 hours. Funny, one of the questions we have tonight is about time. But there's not a lot of, the stakes aren't so high in a 1 shot because it's just kind of like everybody knows what time it is. We're here to do this story and whatever happens, happens. Players are less afraid to die. There's a lot of benefit to that. And then I also think maybe a module that, maybe you do just like a couple of 1-shots. Maybe you do like 2 or 3 different 1-shots. Somebody in chat said Lost Minds of Phandelver is a pretty good starter module. But I wouldn't homebrew out of the gate. Just because I think that there's some mechanical stuff that you're going to probably learn and stumble along the way with. And you don't want to have to stumble along the way with that stuff while you're doing your homebrew, because that's going to mess with the beauty of your story that you want to tell. So do all of that stumbling around and bumbling around playing Strahd. Then, once you feel comfortable, run a homebrew. That's what I would say. Flint says the best thing to realize as a GM is that you can never 100% predict what the players are going to do. Things are going to happen in the world. Players may not react predictably. You got to deal with it. Yeah. So let me take a look at what any advice on how to set it up? Yeah, I wouldn't set it up. That would be my advice. I would use somebody else's stuff first, either a 1-shot or one of the big modules. Run that. Once you feel comfortable around the mechanics of the rules and how the game works, then do homebrew. I think that that's going to be the best move for you. Tales from the Yawning Portal has a couple of good ones for 1-shots. Run a module you've played before. Gaming conventions would be good for that. Yeah. Steering the chaos, as Avram says. That's what we do as DMs. So just kind of hang in there is all I can tell you. But I'm excited for you. I'm excited that you're playing, and also excited to hear that you are interested in DMing, because it's a rare breed. It's a lot of responsibility. A lot of people don't want it. Some people really do love the idea of the world building aspect. But I would get yourself comfortable with the rules and the process first. And generally like what it is to move the story forward in a party, because there's a lot of stuff that you're not going to know how to deal with or you're not going to account for until they happen in game. And like I said earlier, like you don't want all that mess happening in a game in a story that you love. Just like do it for Fandelver. Run a one shot and then have those mess ups. And then that way you'll feel more comfortable going into your homebrew. So hopefully that helps. Thank you for the question, Cameron. Hello from Toronto. Hey, Pat. Welcome to Bard Advice. So thank you, Cameron, for the question. We are going to move on to our second question of the evening. This one, as I mentioned, is about time. So this question is from Tabitha. And Tabitha asks, I started watching your skits a few months ago after my friend and coworker showed me Restaurant Edition. Nice. We're both servers. Oh, nice. Lately, she's been trying to get me to play. I've been considering it, but I'm curious, how long does a typical D&D session last? How long should I expect or schedule to play? I'd clear the day. This will be really interesting because I'm curious to see what people in chat are going to say. One of my first TikToks I made, and this is only relevant because it's about time. There was a person who had made a TikTok that essentially was talking about how, oh man, I went to play session 0 3 hours later and all we did was make characters. And I made a Stitch video TikTok of that where I was like, all I could think about was like only 3 hours. Cause dude, session 0s on character creation, I've gone 6, 8, 10 hours. What's chat saying? Pirate says sessions that go 6+. Flint says 3 to 9. Lauren's 3 to 10. Yeah, I think that the average is probably like 3 to 5, but there's a lot of variables that go into it. It depends on what's going on in that session. Obviously, session 0 takes some time, particularly if the more new people you have, just because there's a lot of stuff that goes into building a character, and so that kind of session, I would expect would at least take 2 to 4 hours. But it depends on what you're comfortable with and how you want to schedule it. It's going to depend on what works best for everybody, which, buckle up for that because scheduling is probably the most annoying part of this hobby. By a mile, for sure. Because, people are adults. They have lives. Some of them have, people have jobs. Some of them have children. It's not easy. We'll talk about that later. It's not easy to coordinate stuff as it is. So I would say prepare yourself for a block of several hours. You could talk to people about what you could put a hard limit on it, but that's not so fun. You want to give yourself a little bit of time. So 3 to 5 hours once a week. Scheduling the true BBEG. Scheduling is the true BBEG. Hi, Wraith. Welcome. Welcome to a bardadvice live. But if you can RP with your kids, yeah, that's true too. We do have some... Chris, one of the friends of the pod, has been playing with his son. He's got like a sudden interest in the game, which is awesome. So yeah, there are some people that just like play D&D with their kids. But I'd put some time aside, Tabitha. I'd say 5 hours. And hey, if you give yourself 5 hours and it only runs 3, then that's a bonus. That's just like bonus time, which is one of my favorite things. It doesn't happen often. But that ever happen? You got like an appointment scheduled or something and it gets canceled and it's like, what is this? What is this 2-hour window where I have nothing I'm doing? Those are cool little moments. I'd schedule yourself 5 hours. Hey, Joseph, thank you for listening and commenting. So hopefully that gives you an idea, Tabitha. I'd definitely set aside some time, but coordinate it with the other people and play. You should play. If your friend is, if you like the show, one of the things about D&D is that it's just like, it's like an improv session. And depending on who you're playing with, like if you're good friends with people, like, there's a little bit of like one-upmanship going on with like who can do like the cooler or crazier or funnier thing. It's a super cool game. Lots of people love it, and I would highly recommend it. Can you let people Pre-build and then submit to DM for approval. Pre-build and then submit to DM for approval. As far as players, yeah. I mean, you can do it that way. All right. So thank you, Tabitha. Hopefully that gives you some form of answer and direction. Moving right along to Nebraska Because, who's here, actually. Nebraska, I have your question here next. So Nebraska, which, by the way, I know that you put your government name in the email, but I just can't not call you Nebraska Because. It's just not possible. That's who you're going to be forever. If I ever met you in person, I would be like, hello, Nebraska Because it's just too good of a handle. Anyway, Nebraska asks, how do you feel about giving each player a piece of the adventure, but they're not allowed to share the information unless it has relevance in the game? An example would be one player believes some part of their history has been kept completely secret from the group, but a second member knows the secret. Our group would love it because they would each feel special and in on something no one else is. Yeah, I love that idea. I would say, how many players do you have in the party where you're doing that? Because yikes, McGillicuddy, that sounds like a lot to... First of all, it's a lot of like honor system meta. Depending on what they know, like out of game. And then also, like, I don't know how you keep up with that as far as the, like, do they know out of game? I guess they wouldn't. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, man. One of my favorite campaigns I ever ran was was where not everyone, but I believe it was a party of 5 or 6, and at least 3 of them, if not 4, but I think 3 of them for sure, also were running evil characters in the world. So there was a lot of coordination going on there, but as a result, it was really cool. And I think it's a super dope idea, especially considering that that knowledge is going to, or at least you would hope that it would, in theory, influence all of their decisions. So that'd be a super interesting game. As long as you trust your group, you can. Mythos says, I don't mind concepts being flushed out, but if we're rolling stats, that happens in front of me. Rhyme of the Frost Maiden has a group of secrets you can pick. My favorite is having a Yeti baby or owl bear whisperer. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Rolling stats happens in front of me. Yeah, it should, by the way. DMs. If you're doing well, I mean, most of my playing, I think, has been done with honor system. At least any game that I've played where Ethan has run it, I've not had to roll in front of him. He trusts that, Hi, Abby. How do you ask a question? Well, the best way to ask a question, no, do not apologize. It's a perfectly normal question. You can send your questions to bardadvice@gmail.com, and please do, because I would be more than happy to try and answer it. That's bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. So just send an email that way, and as I said, I will do my best to answer it. Welcome. Glad you're new here. Character is Link. He's having dinner with a brand. Oh, this is Avram stuff. Oh, this is Avram's son. His character's name's Link. Having dinner with a band of misfits, led by a bugbear chef named Chef and a 2-headed half-giant named Twiddledee and Twiddledum. Nice. Gave me an excuse to hit buttons on the Stream Deck. Yeah, the Stream Deck's fun. Although, actually, I didn't have to hit a button for that one. That was just a clicky. But, yeah, Abby, send it on over. Give him an excuse to hit buttons. Thank you for that. So, yeah, Nebraska, that's a dope idea. And I'm sure, and I would hope that people in chat appreciate that cool idea. Because that is a thing that you can do that really spices up the party. Having it be for everyone is more intensive, but as he mentioned, it makes it special for everybody. And I talked about that a few episodes ago with items. and about how one of my favorite things to do with items is to personalize them. This takes that even a step further, and it says that, like, essentially what you're doing is individualizing incentive, which is really cool. Because then the players have the option to play that how they want to. And then when that kind of stuff comes up in game, like, you know, you have control as the DM of how you want to do that. So, like, maybe you can reveal one of them, and then that lends itself to the other ones questioning stuff that's going on. DM started a campaign by having us write out one truth, one rumor, and one lie. Oh, yeah, I've done that before. I wrote a few extra rumors, then let each player pull from a hat one piece of info on the other. Yeah, that's cool stuff. Alrighty. So hopefully that gives an answer. Not that I think that you needed much guidance. You really just were questioning the idea, of which I think it's really cool. I think anybody should use it. So thank you. Next question, if you can believe it, is from Chris. And Chris asks, I was curious how the collaboration with Onyx came about. Oh, Onyx, Andrew Bowser, that guy is hilarious. So I actually didn't know when I got that question. I had to think, and the more I thought, the more I realized that I didn't know what happened. So I ended up having to go through my email threads and see what happened there, because I honestly didn't remember if we'd reached out to him or vice versa. From what I can see, it looks like one of his representatives, somebody that represents him, reached out to us, because I think that he was trying to do some promotion for his Kickstarter for his film at the time. So they reached out to us to see if we might be interested in doing some sort of a collaboration. And I had already seen a couple of Onyx's videos and thought that he was really funny. So I was totally down. And then we briefly had an exchange. He's a really talented dude, incredibly professional, and has just gotten his film put into the 2023 Sundance Film Festival. So that's pretty awesome, and great for him. You know, he raised money for his Kickstarter to make his movie, and then he made it, and then now that movie is screening at the Sundance. So really proud of him and happy for him. You know, I don't know him all that well, but I think he's a real talent, and it's cool to see that he's getting recognition. Can't individualize your items gear. We'll do it together. Can you make Master Roshi? Yeah, you can if you want to. He'd be probably a monk, maybe a fighter. But yeah, the Onyx thing was kind of out of nowhere. We didn't really plan for it. He was just somebody that I'd seen in passing on the internet, and then one day we got the email, and he was a pleasure to work with. He made it really easy. You know, I always overthink and over-explain, but I think he did a really great job of delivering what we needed, and I thought that episode was funny. It's hard to make anime characters using D&D rules. Yeah, it depends on which edition you're using. Somebody made a Super Saiyan in 3.5 that's pretty cool. It's like a monk, monk vow of poverty, pretty much. 3.5 monk vow of poverty is just like so broken, it's crazy. And you know what else I was thinking about the other day from 3.5 that's really nuts is blood mages. 3.5 blood mages are insane. Sinbad from Magi as an artificer named Odysseus. You know, I've never played an artificer, I don't think. I would love to do that. I've probably done it in like a one-shot, but like, I'd love to play an artificer full on. Sheesh, I want to play. I've got to figure it out. Got to schedule it out. The better systems to make characters like that straight out of the gate. Otherwise, in D&D, it's more like playing the guy who will become Master Roshi. Yeah, that's a thing, too. There are other systems. Isn't there an anime system? What's it called? Chat knows what it is. It'll be up here in a second. Chat will know. 1E gnomes are anime characters. Yeah, Yeah, 3.5 did have a lot of great stuff. Big Eye Smallmouth, thank you. That's what it is. Although I'm sure that there are more. That's the one I was thinking of. Thank you, Bean. Feng Shui is good. Yeah, and then Big Eye Smallmouth. I did not know Feng Shui was a anime RPG, but I'll have to check that out. Oh man, and I'm finally like almost pretty much 2 Water 7 in One Piece. So I'm finally over the hump that was the Foxy Pirate saga. So thank you, Chris. Let's go to the next question. The next question is from Shannon. Shannon asks, new-ish DM. I've run a few modules, but this is my first homebrew campaign. After our first session, I feel like some of the players may have found the combat boring or too easy. How can I make combat more interesting or challenging without making it too difficult or complicated? Thanks for the bard advice. Thank you, Shannon, for the question. So I thought about this. I read this question earlier, obviously, and I've thought about it because I think that one of the things that can trip people up, at least new DMs with combat, is that all that you do is do the combat. And what I mean by that is, you know, you'll have your players come along like a group of goblins, and then they just fight the goblins. And depending on the experience of the players in the party or what it is they're trying to do with their characters or want to do with the story, that can be kind of boring if it's just straight up like, here's the bad guy, fight the bad guy, and then that's the thing. So I'd say the first thing that comes to mind is something that you can do to kind of spice up combat without it being too difficult on your end is to include like natural and or unnatural disasters as part of the environmental combat. So now instead of fighting a group of goblins, they're fighting a group of goblins, but the room that they're in is on fire. So, in addition to fighting the goblins, they are also attempting to avoid, and in some cases, taking fire damage, which is just kind of like an extra stressor that's added to the situation. So, it doesn't necessarily have to even be something that you have to keep up per se with damage. Like you could do something where the walls are closing. So now you've added a second element that adds tension, that adds a sense of holy shit to the party, which is something that, you know, all good DMs should want to do. You want to scare them a little bit without making it overly complicated for you or them, right? So everybody can understand that. Like, oh man, not only are we now fighting this Minotaur, but the walls are closing. Let's see. Have the goblins steal things from the players and run away. Now it's a chase scene. That's true. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's another good point. You don't have to necessarily centralize the combat, so you can keep the combat moving. You can have them run away. Let's see what else the chat's saying. Always found fighting group of goblins with difficult terrain. Yeah, difficult terrain and objects makes it much more interesting. Something else to do, which may be a little overcomplicated, but just, you know, I wanted to throw it out there as an example and an option. Maybe adding like a third party combatant to whatever's going on. So like maybe they're fighting a group of orcs or something, and then like, I don't know, a dragon. maybe not as intensive as a dragon, but you know, maybe like a dire bear or something comes out of the woods and is now also attacking both the orcs and the party. So, and they would only have one initiative, so it wouldn't be too terribly difficult for you as the DM, but that could spice things up because like the bear doesn't really have a stake in the fight, so they're just up for killing whoever. And that complicates things for the players as well, because now they're focusing on this crazy bear and their original enemy. Like to give monsters weird abilities, usually adaptations to their environment, movement abilities, particularly to make combat feel dynamic. Yeah, that's totally a thing too. Like, that's actually something that I was gonna say is like, don't be afraid to go like God mode as the DM, meaning that sure, maybe they're fighting whatever it is they're fighting. Maybe they're fighting a group of elves, and then one of those elves just sprouts wings and now has a fly speed. That dynamically changes the encounter, because now you've got this, depending on what the rest of what the party's capabilities are, maybe you don't have anybody in that party that can fly or do anything with levitation or climbing and stuff. So that's a really quick and easy thing to do. Stat blocks are suggestions, not rules. Hell yeah. I can't tell you the number of times I've done some stuff as a DM where it's just like the players knew, but it's like, what are they going to say? You know, DM's final rule. So you don't necessarily have to have like a book answer for everything you do. You can always explain it away later too. Maybe a wounded soldier in the distance. Stat blocks, suggestions. Beauty of the game is that it's all just telling a story. They're guidelines, not rules. If something's too easy, throw in harder mobs. If it's too hard, start having the mobs fight each other. Yeah. Sentient creatures very often have pets. Doesn't have to be something they have great control over either. When is an encounter too easy or too hard? I don't know. I think it depends on the party. And that's it's one of the great things, but also one of the frustrating things about D&D is that everything is very specific, not only just to like player, but DM and party and table. You know, you can kind of play the game however you want to, which is the beauty of it. If it's a TPK, Bean says TPK is too hard. Yeah, depending on the party. I mean, sometimes they ask for the TPK, in which case, like, I mean, some TPKs are like the definition of fuck around and find out. There's also the option of making the challenge about limiting damage to a thing, or finding a MacGuffin, or limiting collateral damage. Yeah, that's a good point by Hydra in the chat. The goal might not be to kill them. The goal might be to bring them in alive. That also complicates things. Maybe the goal is to like do damage to a specific part of the body or item or weapon that they're holding. Like maybe the goal is to not do max damage. The goal is to like disarm them. That's really a simple thing that can, you know, after they've done like 100 damage and the thing isn't dead, it's like, well, what the hell? You know, you got to start thinking outside the box. So I think those are a couple of things you could do that would be pretty easy to enhance the difficulty of your encounters. Encounter design, Flint says, to steal a quote from Matt Colville, encounter design doesn't stop when initiative is rolled. Yes. Yeah. That's one of the things too, like treating this like improv and very much thinking on your feet and on the fly as best you can, because you don't ever know for certain what your players are going to do. So something that they do very well might totally change the encounter because you say, oh, well, okay, if they're going to do that, well, then I'm going to just drop a dragon in there. Oregon Trail Edition. Oh, my God. How have we not ever played that? Oh, that's brilliant. We're doing that. Normally hate lives, but wanted to pop in and say I love your videos and your raps. You're a gift. Oh, that's so kind. I appreciate you and everyone else on your team. Thanks for brightening my world. You are welcome, DH. Thank you for brightening my world. It's very kind, and it makes me feel good. Yeah, dude, pirate. That is. That's one of those ones, and like every couple of months, one of those comes up where somebody's like, "Hey, have you done this?" And I'm like, how have we not? And that's one of them. That is, we are definitely going to be doing an Oregon Trail edition. I can't say when it's going to be. I mean, we're already a couple of weeks out as far as our shoots, but bro, no doubt. I'm even going to give you I'm going to put a thank you slate for you in the credits for that, because that is, I can't believe I've not thought of that before, or that someone has mentioned it before. Oregon Trail with yeah. Okay. So, hope that gives you a little bit of direction, Shannon. Thank you for the question. The next question we have is from Tony. And Tony asks, you mentioned that Man Shorts is working on a new show. Can you tell us a little more about what it is and when it's coming out? Sure. So I don't know if we have completely agreed on, landed on, set in stone a name for this. But essentially, it's going to be another sketch show. It will include all 4 of us from the D&D editions, and likely other people, maybe, and likely some people that you've not seen on the channel before, because we do have like a lot of local actors that we might want to use. I don't think Justin's here. He's Busy Town, USA this week. But so essentially, it's gonna be a sketch show, but it's gonna be presented as like local news in a fantasy realm. So Melissa and I, or Sarah and I, are going to be the main anchors. Jay or Lance is going to be Jay/Lance. Lance's real name is Jay. Is going to be the like field reporter, live on the scene. And then Rigsby, or also known as Waylon, is going to be like weather and sports. So it's all obviously going to be fictional, made up nonsense, but it's going to be presented as like a local news show, but of a fantasy realm. And maybe I would like this to be the case. I don't know if it will be the case, but maybe some, if not all of us, will be not just human. So I am a little ahead of myself on it, honestly, because I haven't actually finished one episode of it. The weatherman is Waylon, or Rigsby. He's gonna be doing like he'll be doing like weather and sports. And then as it goes, depending on how it develops, there we have ideas for other stuff, but do a Florida edition newscast. Yeah, maybe. That might be fun to do, like a special edition where it's like news from a different realm. Trailer Park Boys edition. Damn, that's another good one. That's right, Tom. The dragon does appear to be burning the town and was seen eating cows earlier today. Yeah, that's what you can expect. Stuff like that. Thank you, Daryl, for the contribution. That show sounds fun. Lots of outtakes. Yeah, most definitely. Especially because it'll be a little bit new format. Because we'll have some stuff. I don't know. I think Melissa and I are going to crack each other up. I think it's going to be difficult. But yes, I don't unfortunately have really any idea of the release for that. I have to finish the scripts for it, and then we also have to kind of figure out where we're going to shoot it, because we're going to rely heavily on green screen for it. Not for everything. In fact, I think a lot of the stuff that we'll do with Jay, like out in the field, will probably be just like around Jacksonville. But I think that the bulk of the show, at least especially in the beginning, is going to be pretty centralized and green screened. But yeah, we're going to try and film one of those as soon as possible, and then put it out there and see what people think and see how it goes. And, we don't even know if it'll be funny. Honestly, I think it'll be funny, but we've got to put it together and then see how it goes. And then if it's funny, then we'll keep that going. And in other news, the port city of insert name here was attacked by a dragon turtle. Yeah. Lots of that. When the news shows we'll have a local animal shelter pet on, we have the cutest little blue dragon looking for a good home. Yeah, I think that it has a lot of legs. I think that there's a lot of room for content there. And I think it would be like really easy to take fan suggestions because like if it's presented as a news show, there's several stories throughout, right? So like I think it'd be really easy for people to come up with an idea for a story and submit it as opposed to like a whole edition or script for an edition. I think it'd be way easier for people to just like even drop comments of just like a headline idea and then we can explore that. Jay would have to be the extreme weather newscaster who's on scene giving live updates reports. Yeah. Trailer Park Boys edition sounds so funny. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that either. What is going on? What is it? I've had more, but I've had better suggestions for editions in this episode than I've had in 2 years. Big Bad is now up for download in custom Beat Saber. What? Hey, anybody that plays Beat Saber, if you want to play Big Bad, I guess it's on there. That's cool. DRGN. One of us is a mimic. You guess. You decide which one is. Okay, so this last question is from... Yeah, so hopefully that gives you an answer, Tony. We don't have a name for it, but that's what it is. It's like a fantasy news show. And I'm hoping that it'll be... I'm hoping that we'll at least film it in the next month or so. And I wouldn't imagine once it's filmed it would take too terribly long in post to get it together and release. So, soon, I'd say before summer, expect it. Looks like our heroes have unfortunately lost. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So thanks for asking, Tony. Let's move on to our final question of the evening because I did want to speak about a follow-up from a few episodes ago. So let's go ahead and get on to this last question of the evening. This question is from Mysticles. And Mysticles, this is actually a two-parter here, lots of text. I have an idea for a character. It's Orko from He-Man type mage who graduated from Mage's college with a C average. His spellcasting has a 50-50 chance of casting the right spell. This percentage increases the higher the character levels above the spell, but never to 100%. If in a battle he tries to cast Fireball but fails, he instead casts Bright Light, blinding everyone within radius. Hilarious. If he casts a passive spell like Heal, he would instead cast Cure Poison. He knows some languages, but gets some key info wrong when translating. My questions are, when rolling for percentage, what dice would you use? Would this ruin the party's RNG to the point the game wouldn't be fun anymore? Is there any other advice you can give that would keep the character goofy without annoying the party? Well, I gotta be honest with you. You very well might want to prepare for the fact that the party's gonna be annoyed about that. In particular with stuff like curing poison instead of healing. I don't know if I have any recommendations to you that would enhance the goofiness of that character. First of all, I love the idea. I think it's brilliant. In fact, I was actually recently considering what it would be like to run a spellcaster who was afraid of magic. So, like, also making them super powerful. And so maybe creating some sort of a balance where, like, they're able to cast spells at a higher level than they normally would be able to. But when they do cast spells, they run a risk of putting themselves into a fear state, or what do they call them? Conditions. Frightening themselves. So, but we're getting off track. Let's talk about my thing. First of all, I went ahead and put this picture up for everybody to see. This is Orko from He-Man, or rather from Masters of the Universe. It's just like this goofy little wizard guy. Kind of hilarious. As far as like 50-50 chance of it working. So it sounds to me like there are really two mechanics there. Right? Like, I guess the question is, do you already have set things that the person, or that the character rather, would cast instead of what the thing is, that are set in place? Because if you do, then I think it's just as easy as a coin flip. as to like, well, hey, if you tried to cast Fireball, you accidentally cast, you know, Intuit Direction or whatever it is. I personally think you would be better served and have more fun doing it as a percentile roll. And you don't even have to necessarily do a full percentile roll. You could just make it like a D10 or a D12, but just kind of, you can still keep it percentage wise the way that you want it, right? So you could still make it like 1 through 5 hits, but then 6 through 10 does any number of other things. And that might be a way for you to enhance it, because then it's completely random, right? So instead of like you go to cast Heal Wounds and you fail, and then everybody in the party is like, ugh, because they already know what's happening. You might be able to. Wouldn't it be hilarious if they went to cast like Heal Minor Wounds and then they didn't, but instead casted Heal Major Wounds? I think that would be really funny. Like it would work out in their benefit. That might be a way to make them more goofy without pissing the party off, because if you can make it so that it sometimes benefits the party, that's the move. So what you do is, this is what I would do. I'd do the percentage as this. I would just give that player a custom die, and I'd say whatever it is, a 10, a 12, do the math. 10's probably easier for the math. And I would say, okay, like, you know, 1 through 4 hit normally. So you've got like or 1 through 5 rather hit normally. And then if you roll a 6 or a 7, this happens. If you roll an 8 or a 9, this happens. And if you roll a 10, this happens. That, I think, sounds like a way to keep it interesting and goofy. And also, if one of those things, maybe the 10, is a thing that's even better than the original thing, that's how you keep the rest of the party from getting too upset. Would make your own wild magic table. If you get a Kraken dice, you get this 2-sided coin. That's true. That is true. That's a good point, Pirate. If you roll D100 and they roll 39 to 69, make the spell work with a different element or quirk. Yeah, that's a way I think you can do it. So take your percentile die however you want to do it. You can really do it however you want to. I think it's easiest to do it with just 1 die, and then split that up accordingly. And do it in degrees. So like if you want it to be half and half, then 5 of those numbers, and you can do it however you want to, probability wise, it's all the same, I guess. But you could do it where it's like, even if it's even, then it's a hit, and if it's odd, 1 of 5 things happens based on this chart. 2 of which are like the opposite and kind of not good. 1 of which is like innocuous and doesn't really matter. 1 of which is like really bad, and then 1 of which is actually better. And then that's cool, because then that player kind of has like their own die to work with. Is there a piece of D&D that would make D&D, or is there a piece of software that would make D&D easier or more fun? I'm not talking about Roll20 or anything. Not Direcloud, D&D Beyond either. Make it more, well, I would say that World Anvil makes D&D easier from a organizational standpoint for DMs, and maybe even for players too. Dungeon Crawl Classic says an interesting magic system would work here well. Maybe a lot to convert though. I think the first thing you do is make sure the rest of the table is okay with having an unreliable party member. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like I said from the beginning, and the only reason that I recognize that so well is because I'm so that person. I am like that. I'm a troublemaker. I am there to like do the meme, so I know what that is to run. You know, to be like the thorn in the paw of the party. I do think that if you set it up like I mentioned, where one of the options for this randomness is actually beneficial, or even more so beneficial to the party, I think that that's a good way to keep them, you know, if not on board, at least it's easier for them to swallow than just knowing that half the time all he does is bad stuff. It'd be nice to know that it's like, okay, half the time he hits, and 10% of the time he does something really great, and 20% of the time, you know, if they can justify it more in their heads to where it's more spread out, then I think that that's the move. Have you ever caught someone outright cheating? How do you deal with that? No, I've not. But as to how you deal with it, I don't know. I'm not very good at confrontation, to be completely honest. But, I mean, outright cheating seems weird. Like, to whose benefit are you serving by doing that? Of course, cheating seems weird to me anyway, just because it's like, doesn't that taint whatever the thing is? Like, that was one of the reasons I had to quit playing Warzone. And which, by the way, I don't know if there's any gamers here that care, but I saw an article recently that I don't know the name of the company, but they're like one of the bigger cheat companies for gaming, just lost this court case to Activision. And they have to pay them like $3 million or something. Which is, I think a win for gamers, right? Because that's one of the reasons I quit, if not the main reason. Listen, I'm no like I'm no like FPS machine. I'm no MLG, okay? But I do know when someone's cheating. It's obvious when someone's cheating. So I just don't get it. Honestly, if I saw it, I would ask them why they were doing it. And genuinely want to know. Like, not sarcastically, I would be like, oh, well, why are you doing that? When Sarah fudges her rolls all the time. Yeah, well, hey, there's not, we don't necessarily have any evidence of that. Bungie just won a case against a cheating company, too. Oh, okay, cool. Good. Is there a channel you guys play D&D? You love the skits, but just wondering if you guys stream or play D&D stuff. Thank you for the question, Professor Lollipop. We do not currently. That's awesome. Also an awesome name. I guess that the PRF is for Professor. We are not currently playing, although it's something that is in the works. I've got to start talking to people about planning it and figuring it out. But I'd like to do a campaign, like a 3-5 campaign, and maybe have Jay DM it. Or maybe Rixby. I don't know. I have to think about it. I don't want to DM. I want to play. I want to play a 3-5 edgelord so badly. So while we don't have anything currently in the works, we're working on it. Just wanted to say thanks for all the great content and music over the years. First time catching this live and glad I did. Oh, thank you, Mythos. I appreciate the donation and the kind words. I'm glad that you caught it live as well. And I'm glad that you like the content. You've always wanted to play a corrosive magic concept. Casters of any type may cast levels up to their con bonus without issue. For every spell level above that, they lose that much con for an hour. Oh, that's kind of a cool idea. That's a cool one, too. But yeah, Mr. Cleese, hopefully that gives you some sort of an answer and guidance. Lead by example, play a druid. Oh, good call. That's a damn good call. I should run a druid. Oh, man. That makes me want to play even more. Why did you have to do that, dude? Druids. 3-5 druids, too. Because you know why? Because 3-5 druids get companions. They can wild shape and they get companions. So you can double tank. Oh, 3-5 druids are so fun. When do I go live? So I am live every week, every Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Man Shorts channel. The podcast audio is available the following Saturday at noon, everywhere you listen to podcasts. But if you want to watch it live, it's 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. And then the VODs are available pretty much immediately after. I do need to do a little bit of editing with the last few episodes, but... Which circle? Moon Druids? Yeah, probably. I think Moon Druids are the best. I think that's the best circle, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look over it again. So, if Mr. Lollipop has a PhD, he'd be Dr. Lollipop. Oh, he studies. Professor Lollipop studies lollipops. I'm the first to say PRF is professor. Well, what the hell else would it be? Huh. Longtime fan, first time question: is a true neutral character worth investing time in? Well, I mean, I don't think that alignment should dictate whether or not the character is worth investing time in. I think that the character itself answers that question. True neutral's a weird one. I've never played a character that's true neutral, and honestly, I feel like I don't fully understand it, if I'm being forthright. But I don't think that an alignment would be a reason to just not do it. In fact, I think it'd be a really interesting exercise. At least I have never played a straight up true neutral character, so I think it might be interesting to. Pirate says they're hard to play. I think if at a minimum it would be a challenge, right? At a minimum it would be something to try. I don't think that it's like not worth investing the time. I think it's worth a shot. I think you could probably find out pretty early if it's worth continuing. It would help you to put up before you go live, so it would send us notifications. Okay. Well, I will make more of an effort to do that, Anne, and try and figure that out. Sorry, I'm a little like I'm getting out of touch. I'm getting older. You know, I was like at the beginning of the episode where like 75 degrees is my regular, 72 is like 71 is too cold. But I'll do my best to try and figure out how to do that. Haven't gotten a notification in a few weeks. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the algorithm and in general with us. I get comments a lot from people who say that, like, we get comments all the time from people who are like, "Whoa, cool to see that you guys are making videos again." And it's like, we've been dropping videos weekly for like over a year. What are you talking about? It's just like YouTube just like doesn't tell people about it, I guess. Whatever, the algorithm gods. You always walk a tightrope with true neutral, just like 3/5 paladins had to walk the lawful good tightrope. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be able to run true neutral because I'd be doing something crazy pretty immediately, and the DM would probably be like, "Hey, that's not very true neutral of you." So, all right. Before we go, I want to. You had a harder time with LG than true neutral. Yeah, I probably would too. So before we go, I would like to revisit or do more of a sort of a follow-up to a question that we had a couple of weeks ago. And that question was from Carl. And just to remind everyone, Carl asked, Wednesday group is pretty small, 3 players and myself. Recently, one of my players got a coworker of theirs interested in playing. The issue is that said potential player has a baby due in a few months. Feel like once the kid comes, they won't have time for the game. It's their first, been assured they'll be able to play and be consistent, yada, yada, yada. So I encouraged Carl to give it a shot. And Carl sent me follow-up information. They explained that it was kind of a dumpster fire. Unfortunately, it seems like... Now, I don't want to go into like specific details about what was said because like I'm not trying to like, it's none of my business. But I'll just say that from what I gathered from Carl, this person was given ample chances and opportunity to kind of get with the program. It seems like there were some major issues with showing up on time and or at all. And honestly, from your email, Carl, it sounded like there was a major issue with expectation and communication. The idea that this person would not even communicate with you that they weren't showing up is kind of annoying. The reason that I wanted to bring this up is twofold. For one, it shows that, like, I think that in spite of it not working out, I think that you did the right thing and set the example for doing the right thing. I think that everybody should always give somebody the benefit of the doubt and an opportunity to make it work. That said, I think that you were incredibly fair in giving what, if I remember correctly, were 3 separate chances for this person to, show up on time and be there to do the thing. It sounds like maybe there's something else going on in that person's life besides just the baby coming, because you had mentioned that like there was issues with them being able to get a ride there, and which is like already it's like, well, you know, if you're not able to get a ride, then this isn't going to go. Like we've got to, that's got to be something you figure out. But what's more concerning to me is that they just didn't show and just didn't notify you at all. That's not cool. And I'm sorry that that happened. But again, I wanted to bring it up because I want to encourage everybody in the community to not let this be something that that encourages you to not give people chances in the future. I think that Carl did the right thing. I think that Carl gave this person every opportunity to make it work. Thank you, Keyboard Bandit, for the contribution. Don't forget to thumbs up, y'all. Thank you. That's very nice of you. And yeah, that is. Give it some likes, people. I think you did the right thing. It's just a shame that the person didn't show up. I would also like to point out that, again, it sounds like something else is going on than just the Bibois, right? Like, this doesn't sound like baby stuff. Like, not showing up at all and not saying anything, that's just kind of rude. Obviously, like, maybe, you know, emergencies happen, things come up, but 3 times in a row, it's just not very nice or respectful of other people's time. You know, once is understandable, maybe even twice, but a 3rd time and then also not communicating, 3 strikes. Yeah, that's the baseball rules. Got to work for D&D too, I think. But Carl, I think you should applaud yourself. I think you did the right thing, and I think that I encourage you to continue to do that in the future. Even though, unfortunately, it didn't work out, and that sucks. You didn't do anything wrong. I think you did the right thing there. And I encourage everybody to try and give people the benefit of the doubt in the future. I don't think that this issue just has to do with the fact that this person has a child on the way. I think that there are plenty of people that have kids, that are planning on having kids, that are pregnant, that are perfectly capable of maintaining schedules, and more importantly, communicating. So, yeah, you did try, and that's the important thing. We had a bard who was modeled after Brave Sir Robin's musician. Okay, well, that was a lot to take in. Putting your foot down is a good thing. If it's that consistent rudeness that calls for it, doesn't hurt to say anything. Yeah, you know, and like I said, I will say that I don't think that that person is like not a good person. There's probably stuff going on that they're just not being fully transparent about, and I can be that way, which is one of the reasons that I'm usually like liable to give somebody more of a chance, because I can do that kind of stuff where I can appear to be or actually be very selfish with other people's time. And most of the time it's accidental, but it's a lack of self-awareness on that other person's part, right? Because like, while I am the type of person who might do that, I wouldn't do it 3 times. You know, like if I had to bail out once and then I was finding myself bailing out a second time, at that second time I would be like, I can't do this. Sorry. The fact that they didn't do that shows like a little bit of lack of self-awareness on their part. So that's unfortunate. If you tried, I say you made a good call if you gave them opportunities and they still didn't work out. Yeah, most definitely. So thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out. Not to leave abruptly, but it just occurs to me that we are well over an hour and we've done all of our questions, including a follow-up. So just a quick reminder for everybody, send your advice questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. And as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, if you can, please rate the show, particularly on Apple Podcasts. If you listen there, give it some ratings. I know that stuff really helps the algorithm and keeping this thing moving. We're getting to build a nice little community with this podcast. I've really enjoyed, getting to speak with the regulars and hang out with the new people, getting chances to come in. And yeah, maybe, but I don't think it was just the lateness or not showing up, but the lying about it, not even attempting to be apologetic. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, there's a lack of self-awareness on their part because, like, they're not even, they're not apologetic, which goes to show that, like, either they they know that what they did is really messed up and they don't care. But what's probably more likely is that, like, they don't even realize what they did was as rude as it was, which, you know, that's a separate issue. So we will be here next week. Same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Man Shorts YouTube channel. This episode will be available tomorrow, Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As far as the audio, the VOD will be available pretty immediately. I hope that everybody has a good weekend. I hope that everybody's staying safe in all of the craziness that's been going on on this planet the last several years. But yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out. I hope you have a great weekend. We will see you next week.